May I please ask you to welcome on stage Darren Lynch, Vice President of Consulting at GEP, and Ingrid Faber, the Chief Exec at Faber Group. Darren and Ingrid.
Good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here, and thank you for turning up at the Tube Strike. Darren Lynch is my name. I lead GEP's business in Europe and the Middle East. And for those of you who don't know us, we focus on helping organizations transform their supply chains and their cost base in a sustainable manner. That's our company mission and vision is to develop a beautiful world from our founder. So with that, I'm delighted here today to talk today to bring to life one of our customer journeys, joined by my colleague, my client. Thank you very much. Ingrid, so you want to say hello?
Yes, I want to say hello. Do you want to have the clicker or you want me to have the clicker?
You go
I can
first.
do it. Okay. So I go to I just skip to my presentation. Is that okay, Darren, or do you want to have this sheet?
No, brief look. I'm not going to labour really, but our focus is working with organizations like Faber Group and hopefully many other organizations in the room, helping them understand their cost base, their supply chain performance. That's where we focus, right? To help to understand. Traditionally, we come from looking at cost transforms into value trans into what is the customer perception, and a lot of that is based upon doing things sustainably, investing and transforming supply chains that work towards that. It's a long journey, takes time, and what we want to do today is bring to life a little bit about that and let you start by talking about that.
Thank you very much. All right, so my name is Ingrid Faber, and often when I explain in the bar that I'm into pallets and boxes, people turn around very quickly because it's not a very interesting product. But I can tell you, if you in your supply chain do not have pallets, then you really have an issue. And I was raised in that business because it's a third-generation family business. And I took over management of the business from my father in 2006. So I'm also already quite long on board, and I actually started to work for the family business in 1992, so over 30 years. And I'm still very young, I can tell you. Our business, I'm going to tell you a bit more about what our business is about, but our target is to reduce our carbon footprint with 30% towards 2030 and to become net zero in 2045. As you can see also on the sheet, with our business model, we can prevent carbon emissions for our customers. That's what our business is about. Maybe also good to say is my grandfather started off in the production of butter casks. Butter casks are easy because they can be rolled, and you can roll them in a carriage, because many people do not realize that there did not exist any pallets when there were no forklifts. So if you go to countries where labor is very cheap, you often see that there is no pallets used there yet, and that might shift towards the future when labor becomes more expensive. Then after the production of the butter casks, after the Second World War, the forklift was introduced into Europe. And then we started to produce pallets. And only in the end of the 90s, we started to do pallet pooling. At a certain point, we saw that the future would be the reuse of the product. And in 2020, we decided to let go of all of our production firms, and we are only focusing on pallet pooling. And then I'm going to try to explain to you what pallet pooling is about. So if you look at the outside circle, the purple circle, that's actually visualizing how pallet production is going along. So we source the timber from sustainable forests. They go to production facilities, pallets are being made, pallets are being used, and once they have been used and there is no other use for them, they can be shred, and you can do whatever you like. You can recycle the wood in particle boards. They can be used in biomass installations. I know that if I talk to a public of sustainability people and talking about biomass, that it's terrible. But I can tell you, if you want to do biomass, then people are, they really want to have wood. Because wood is the material that increases the temperature so that you have most optimal fire extinction, and on the other hand, the value to sell your raw material to this kind of environment is very high. So, and theoretically, if there If that was not needed, you can shred the pellets and bring them back to the forest as a nourishment to the soil. So it's a very circular product. But in the inner circle, you see the pooling system. So actually what it is about is we bring the pellet to our customers. The customers use the pellet to bring it under load to the next stage. Often it is retail. At the end stage, we are collecting the pellets. We are bringing them to a sort and repair center and bring them back to the following customer. And therefore we can rotate pellets time after time after time after time. So my first question to you is, does anybody have an idea how long we are circulating the pellet? So how many years do we use a pellet? Is there anybody who dares to try? Nobody, yeah, I expected. Yeah, there you go.
I think that they would get trashed just from a lot of use, so I'm going to say 1 year.
So we depreciate our pellets in 7 years, but we are sure that we can use them for 10 years. And they are being rotating time after time, 4 to 5 times a year. So there you can see how many rotations they make. But I'm really glad. Thank you very much for your contribution. So really, the example of the reuse economy, the circular economy, is in our business model. So then the next question to you. Do you have an idea what the reduction in carbon emission is if you would use a pooled pellet compared to a one-way pellet? And then take into account that we need to do a lot of transportation and stuff like that. So what do you think that we can reduce in the carbon emission if you start using a pooled pellet compared to a one-way pellet? Come on, guys. You dare.
Percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise. 30%. Yeah, go.
75%.
70. You're very close. Here you have the example. We are reducing 85% of the carbon emission by using reusable, so pooled pellets. And here also comes the challenge, because if we are able to do more rotations on a yearly basis, so meaning we use less time to sort repair the pellets, we use less time to transport the pellet or wait for transport or wait for collection, or we can convince our customer to reduce the time that they use the pellet in their stock or in their transport, then we are going to improve this even. If we are able to reduce the kilometers we drive with an empty pellet, we're going to improve this even. So what I'm trying to say is with us, with our kind of company, sustainability and profitability go hand in hand. So this is what we do with the supply chain to try to improve the sustainability footprint. But we also have our own emissions, of course. And therefore I would like to show you this overview. There you see that over 95% of the carbon emissions we have is caused by working together with our suppliers. So I can read it. So 43%-ish is the purchased load carrier. So if we lose a pallet, we need to buy a new pallet. If we gain a customer, we need to buy a new load carrier. So the load carrier purchase is a big chunk of our carbon emission. But transport is also very important. And as said before, if we are able to reduce the kilometers we drive with an empty pallet, then we are becoming more sustainable. There also lies a challenge here, because let's say our customer is delivering. So think about consumer goods. Also let's say the Christmas gifts that are being transported. They're being transported from the supplier to the retailer. And we never talk to that supplier which kind of truck they're using. That can be a diesel truck. This truck is probably going back empty because the products are being consumed in supermarkets. And we need to collect the pallets. So I struggle a bit. Which is the most sustainable solution? Using the diesel truck to collect the pallets back, or driving a separate electrical truck or nitrogen truck to collect those pallets? And my gut feel is that it's better to use the empty lanes, but it's on this list, eh? So I have some different. So there was a moment in time where we say sustainability for us is more important than profitability, but due to this difficulty, I'm not able to say that yet, but we're going to change that, Darren. So for me, the last goals, the goals we have to improve our sustainability is to reduce the Scope 3 emissions, as said before. Optimize the load carrier usage, very important. Optimize the supply chain. decarbonizing transport, so try to use as much as possible nitrogen or carbon or electrical trucks, driving sustainable procurement, which Darren is going to be elaborating also a bit more about, and end-of-life circularity. I just explained to you the example of a wooden pallet, which theoretically you can throw back into the forest to make the soil more nutritious. But we also have quite some plastic load carriers. To be honest, it doesn't matter to me which kind of load carrier we have. It can be any material. Reuse is more important than the material, but still we do have some end-of-life issues, and that is also the challenge we have toward 2045. So Darren, how are you going to help us with that?
Sustainably. Oh, thank you. So Ingrid's mentioned a number of different areas. So our role in trying to help work with Ingrid and some of our other colleagues in the room here, I can see Falk and a few others. Our role is to help, first of all, is to provide visibility, right? Map out, right? So what are we doing today, right? And to the point around where are those hotspots? So you touched upon fuel types, right? Yeah. And trucks particularly. So it sounds simple, but traditionally a lot of organizations, you go out and you're buying shipping, you're buying transportation, etc. Right? The thought traditionally is not trying to capture, right? How is that being done? What fuel is being used? How many supply chain miles or supply chain kilometers are being used within that? And knowing, so most of you interact, or I don't know where you're from, but organizations, you're buying goods and services from somebody who then are using an organization like Faber to then deliver that. So visibility into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you've gone back to tier 3 or into tier 4 nearly with suppliers here, right? So we're all charged with getting visibility, trying to establish a baseline, and that's difficult when you have thousands of lanes in delivery across tens of countries, right, in a single region, and then growing that out exponentially, right? So we've got to focus on trying to figure out, so first of all, get visibility and map it. So we spend time thinking about, from a supply chain perspective, getting visibility, engaging with your planning organization, trying to understand what commercially, what's the demand look like, working with them to optimize the supply base, right? So do you have the right locations for depots? Do you have the right locations for, where do you source? So when pallets are being produced, where are they shipped to? How are they shipped, right? Is that the most optimal way of doing that from a cost and time perspective, right? Do you use, we've been talking about using barges, right? Using rivers, right? Bulk shipping, it may seem slower, but it gets you to a better point. So then where do you bring them? Then how do you design your network? All right, so network optimization, network design, and consolidation is what we spend time thinking about. Where are the hotspots that we can target quickly, right? And then going away from having thousands of suppliers. If you're dealing with individual, in some cases you can never get away with it because there's specific local locations. Your customer dictates, no, we need to deliver there, and there are not many choices in certain cases. But how you go about buying that, how you go about understanding what the requirements are, trying to optimize those. So it's optimizing time, optimizing cost, and optimizing CO2 emissions, right? And that is a balance all the time. So we think about then developing and have done the second point here, carbon adjusted savings methodologies. So there are carbon taxes, the prices, right? So we've, working with Faber and other external benchmarks and our own insights, developed a cost per equivalent CO2 metric ton, and it's 55 euros, right? So you evaluate the cost to serve today. You evaluate, this is the specification. I want to go away from using diesel to biofuel, to using methanol, to using electric, or using hydrogen, whatever is out in the marketplace, and whenever we can incentivize. And it's about helping organizations understand what is available in the marketplace. How can you work with suppliers to actually improve that and start to move, right, and incentivize people to do that? So we use these evaluation criteria as introducing these additional costs to show and highlight to the organization internally, right, and to be able to communicate that and highlight that to your customers. Yeah. This is what we are doing to incentivize and move the supply chain to a sustainable manner. So when you're engaging with your retail customers, the idea being that you can then incentivize them to let us use the backhaul, right, and work with us, right, work as an ecosystem to pick up and reduce the cost to serve for everybody and reduce the sustainability and the carbon emissions footprint. So we talked about using different transportation options and methodologies. Some of that is dictated to what infrastructure is being put in place through regulation, through government infrastructure programs and incentivization, what's happening in broader energy transition programs in each country, and then what large transportation companies are doing as they're moving to that. What's the right fuel mix? What's the investment that's required? And how do you work and incentivize and work together, right? And so we then embed sustainability commitments, right? And making sure people start to think about, we want to make sure that you are compliant to current regulations, you're aware of pending regulations, what's coming down the line, and how are you going to meet those? How are we going to jointly transition to those, right? So it's a number of those initiatives that lead us to build a program. And Ingrid mentioned earlier on your goal to reduce by 30%.
Yeah.
So the work that we're doing with the procurement team, with the operations teams throughout Faber, all the countries, we're building a pipeline, and already we've identified in the last 6 months a third of that target, right, to be implemented, because it's just planning, getting engaged, understanding where the opportunities are, thinking strategically, not tactically, because operations people's job is to fulfill on the day. Right, and so it should be. Yeah. Right, meet your customer service levels. Our job is to work in the background and to work collaboratively to start thinking, well, how are we going to start to transition these things, right? So we build initiatives. So instead of going out in 30 different ways in small amounts, let's start to think of things a little bit more strategically and sort, from a procurement perspective, it's quite normal. That's our job. But it's doing it and introducing a lot more sustainability initiatives and getting procurement people to think about that also. And then embedding that and educating and collaborating with your customers, because it's their buyers that need to be educated as well.
Yeah.
So showing what Ingrid's organization can do can then highlight and enable the buyers to do that for their customers. So that journey we've been on, that journey has started. It's not over. It takes numbers of years long. So what have we done? And what has your organization done, to be fair? So to date, high level of adoption. So as a culture, top down, you're seeing it, you're hearing it from Ingrid and their organization. Sustainability and profitability go together, right? That means a lot, right? So top down sponsorship and alignment. I know it sounds simple, repetitive, but for organizations that set it up and deliver it, that is really, really important, because it becomes, you embed it in leadership goals and department goals, right? People, what are you doing? How are your goals aligned to this goal? What are the 3 things you're doing this year to make sure that is? So the awareness of that and the distribution of those sustainability goals that is in every part of operations, right? That is important. New ideas. So things like jointly working and collaborating on a carbon footprint model and a cost model, right? To be able to not just evaluate on speed, on cost and quality, but what's the sustainability measure, and educating suppliers. So as they're submitting pricing and proposals to us, they're taking that into account. Right, so it's a different metric, a different measure, which starts people to think differently. And then, obviously, sustainability then is embedded in every procurement process. Normal evaluations, criterias, right? Weighting, there's more weighting and more importance in it. What have we learned as we go along? Not unusual, right, for every large organization. Data availability and consistency, right? When you're dealing with multiple systems, legacy systems, they're designed for finance, they're designed for order management, they're designed for transportation, scheduling. They're not designed or built for sustainability. So you're not going to, it's the wrong thing to do to turn up and say, hey, you just need to throw all this out and replace all these because of this, right? So it's about how can you use the data, how can you use technologies? So how are we using, introducing some AI technologies and capabilities to extract, to enhance and enrich data to make it a little bit easier and quicker.
Yeah, and I can tell you that as a family business, you very often see that we have legacy systems. So there is a big improvement to be made here.
Yeah. Definitely. So then I mentioned earlier, visibility. So just simply understanding. So having thousands of road freight carriers, how do you get visibility into them? Right? How do you start to even educate? Right? How can you? So you need to move on from using databases that have rough estimated average figures, which are very good in their own right, but move from paper-based reporting to actual reporting. Right? So challenging. How we start to use technologies again to start to address that, and the incentivization of suppliers. What's in this for me? Same with everybody. Right? So that's the hard yards in the middle. to focus on that, right? They're not new challenges, but it's really important from a sustainability perspective to start championing and pushing those, because you're working in collaboration with other functions. And then as we move the journey ahead, transparency, data collection, getting smart and using smart technologies, right? Integrated business planning. So getting more supplier forecast availability. So Ingrid, you mentioned the key with your suppliers, with your customers. Customer data and supplier data, integrating those and having real-time information, right? How do you start to incentivize? How do you get access to because you're asking for the same information for a different purpose and different use, right? And developing the right outputs for that. That's what we focus on. That's where we're going. And yeah, so the insight then when you get from that data to drive further benefits, financial and non-financial benefits, right? To deliver the 2030 target. And just making better informed decisions from a procurement perspective. When you're dealing with a procurement organization, that you're making the right decisions and the right weighting, right? And that's a learning and development for procurement people as much as everybody else. So with that, I think we have a few minutes for maybe some questions, or not?
Are there any questions in the room? Any hands up? There must be dozens. It's the morning. Sir, your hand went up first. I've got a microphone coming to you.
I have a question regarding the use of sold products category. Is that relevant for you? Because
Can you say that again? Is it?
yeah, I don't think the microphone is working. Okay.
Yeah, it does work.
I was wondering about the use of sold products category for you, because in your scope 3, is that relevant to you, the way your products is used? Because obviously it's transported. Does that come back to you in some way?
Yeah, of course, because, if the pallet is damaged, we need to do more activities to get it back into the normal state. So often you see that the outside boards or the blocks are being damaged. And if that cannot be repaired, then, or if it's not just the turning of the block, but the whole block is broken, then we have to take it out and put a new block in. And that is also part of the figure when you say new load carriers. That's also the timber that needs to be introduced after the repair. But what I can tell you, and what I did not say in my presentation, because I didn't know how much time I had, so I tried to keep it as concise as possible. But we're currently also into a digitization development. So we are a digital transformation doing, because you can imagine that with all the flows that we have from customers to the end users, we have a lot of data. And if we are able to analyze that data better than what we have been doing until now, then we are going to improve the number of rotations, and we can optimize the supply chain very much. So there is a lot of opportunity still to come. We even are currently we have an investment in a company that is doing IoT, and we have decided that we will equip all pallets in England with IoT tags, because it's a relatively closed market, and we are going to try to reduce our loss percentage even more by having all the pallets sending out information on where they are. So you can imagine that we have a lot of additional opportunities to further improve the sustainability of the system.
And time for one more question, possibly. There's a gentleman there.
More over there. Give that back.
Thank you so much. It's a very interesting presentation. I was wondering if you've done research into alternatives to pallets, and whether pallets are still like the most sustainable option from a life cycle perspective.
Yes, we have. And I don't know if I'm proud to say, but I can tell you, so probably here in the UK, it's not very common to use Euro pallets, but the Euro pallets has not been innovated in the past 60 years. And I cannot imagine that there is any other product that has been already in place for such a long time without any adjustment. There are alternatives, but it's mostly immaterial, because what you need is that you have something where you can put your forklift under. And since a timber pallet is only about 10 euros, it's very low value, and there is no trigger to start to replacing it. And if you say more sustainable material, I can talk lengthy about it, so I warn you, and maybe if you will have time, I will be later on. But just imagine wood is grown. If you see to it that it's being harvested from a sustainable forest, then you can see to it that it's a biodiverse forest. If you go to, for example, Sweden or Norway or Finland, you cannot imagine how big the areas are where forests are being harvested, but it is their core business. So they are very, very, very careful with handling their forests. And look at it as if you're a farmer and you have a piece of land and you're growing potatoes for a year, and you harvest the potatoes, and after a year you can grow again. That is the mindset we as humans have. If you look at it the same way at forests, but the only thing is a forest takes 30 years before it can be harvested, then you might have another perspective. And I agree with you that after a year, a forest that is harvested does not look nice. But there is another opportunity for a lot of flora, I don't know if that's an English word, animals, because if the trees are high, nothing is growing on the soil. But if there is a lot of sun, there is a lot of green for all the animals to start feeding themselves. So I'm very much into like plastic. It's coming in the end. It's coming out of the soil. So it's oil, and after usage we still have an issue what we do with the plastic. So my gut feel is that timber is more sustainable than any other material. The only thing is we have some difficulty in translating that into legislation.
And if you'll forgive me, that's where we have to leave it. Darren and Ingrid, thank you very much for those insights. We have GEP and colleagues next with a panel discussion on sustainability and procurement and supply chain. So you've really set the scene for that. Thank you. And we'll be drawing on a lot of what you said. Just one comment on pallets is that I've made a brilliant coffee table out of a Euro pallet.
Yeah,
and
beds do well very well as well.
Mrs. Curtis has no intention of letting me return that to you.
No.
Can I just put that on the record?
But just imagine if it's not brown colored, if there's no brown color around it, then it's not mine, so you can keep it.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.